We live in a multidimensional universe. So we live in a world that we can perceive with our physical senses, like our visual sense, hearing sense, tactile touch sense, etc. But quantum physics and string theory teaches us that there are at least 12 to 13 dimensions. The physical dimension is just one. But parallel to the physical dimension is a spiritual dimension or spiritual world, also known as the invisible world, parallel universe or spiritual world. All of those dimensions exist simultaneously. So for example, I'm sitting in the studio talking to you. You could be in the USA, you could be anywhere in the world. But in this room, there's Paul McGuire in the physical dimension, which you can see and hear and perceive. But because we're communicating with you electronically, and we're using bandwidth of certain EMF electromagnetic frequencies. I'm not talking about, we're not using the dangerous frequencies. We're not using 5G. But anything that you receive over an electronic communication, whether it's the internet, social media, video, audio, Wi-Fi, AM or FM radio, television or whatever, all of that is what you're seeing and what you're hearing from me, Paul McGuire, on the Paul McGuire Report. What you're perceiving while you're listening is because this information, this data, the image, the words, the visual presentation is being communicated to you via EMF or a specific electromagnetic frequency range that is being sent to you electronically. So if you're in Asia, Japan, China, if you're in South America, somewhere in the USA, if you're in Alaska, if you're in New Zealand, Australia, Great Britain, France, anywhere in the world, we have people listening, Israel, people listening to us and watching us from all over the world. And one thing, we're being united through electronic electromagnetic frequency communication. So what you're seeing is not just white noise on a TV set. What you're hearing is not static. If your technology is calibrated properly, the electromagnetic frequencies through being processed through computers, laptops, cell phones, satellites, etc., etc., the broadcasting, and broadcasting refers to sending the electromagnetic frequency on a broad band of electronic magnetic frequencies, a broad band of frequencies. So when we say we're communicating to you on broadband, that's what it means. Or a narrow band of electromagnetic frequencies, and that would be a different frequency range. Or 5G would be another frequency range. And so we're able to communicate back and forth if you're using Skype or whatever. We're able to communicate to people all over the world, people like you. Now, that's fine. For the most part, with the exception of certain spectrums of electromagnetic frequencies such as 5G, for the most part, the electromagnetic frequencies and technology we're using to communicate to you with is harmless. It's not going to hurt you. But if you choose to use certain specific technologies, such as 5G, that safety net disappears because the electromagnetic frequency that 5G is on is in the same frequency range as a EMF directed energy beam weapon that's set on non-lethal. So when you've seen documentaries of the U.S. military, they fire a beam at a crowd rioting. The crowd disperses because they feel like their bodies are on fire. Well, the U.S. military, this is one of their own training videos, by the way. So it's not a conspiracy theory because it's a U.S. military training video. They're shooting a non-lethal 5G directed energy beam weapon into a crowd. Their skin's burning like they're on fire. They disperse. But if they just pressed a button, they could increase the intensity of the non-lethal 5G transmission. They could turn it up just a pinch and make it a lethal or deadly EMF transmission. So instead of people's skin feeling like it's burning, you could drop dead with a heart attack. That technology exists. Now, as we're decoding information, we also have, and this is largely ignored by people in a materialistic, secularist society, we have what is called content. And I think I'm going to save that for the next report, the issue of content. But I will say this, that content is not neutral. The very content of what you are placing within an electromagnetic frequency, the content of the images, the content of the words and the sounds, the content of the information, the content of the visual information, and the sound and auditory information. Then you go into the deeper content, not just what a picture looks like, not just what a musical sound looks like, but if you were going into another dimension that modern man has not ascribed a name, an identifying name to the more profound dimensions that coincide with content. So you have content where you appreciate or observe the visual nature. Oh, that's red, that's blue, that's green, that's yellow. Those are flowers. That's a stream. Or that's just a sterile office building in steel and concrete. That's content. But if you take the deeper dive, if you take the deep dive, and many of you aren't ready to take the deep dive. So if we're looking for truth, right, and you're looking for truth, why are you looking for truth? Because truth is power. Truth is power. Jesus Christ said, when you know the truth will set you free. You got all these people who call themselves Christians, including ministers of the gospel, including Bible teachers of the gospel, including pastors of the gospel, seminaries, professors of the gospel, denominations of the gospel, and individual Christians who claim to be Christians of the gospel. But the majority of them are into social media, okay? They're into television, they're into video. There's a million sources, Netflix, Amazon, we go on and on and on. This ministry pours out considerable monies so that we can stay on social media channels, internet channels, podcasting channels, the Roku Channel, and many other channels where our content is broadcast. The Roku Channel, which has thousands of hours of me giving Bible prophecy messages and Bible messages at Paradise Mountain Church. And we have conference messages I've given, interviews I've given, all available to you for free at paulmcguire.us or by going to the Roku Channel, where our dedicated channel name is paulmcguire.us, and many other channels. But, what you see on these videos and audio, that's one thing. But if you're going to take the deep dive for truth, okay, if you're going to take the deep dive for truth, that means you have to pursue truth with a passion and aggressiveness, a dedication, and a willingness to you and me have to make the choice to go where, I think this comes from Star Trek, you might have to help me out, to go where no man has ever gone, or no man or woman has ever gone. I know I messed it up, but you know that Star Trek line. So we got to take the deep dive. Many people who say they're pursuing truth don't want to go to the deeper end of the swimming pool. Many people who say they're pursuing truth are afraid to take the deep dive. So what is governing or ruling their lives? Remember, knowledge is power. The truth will set you free. And God tells you over and over and over again in His Word, especially in the book of Proverbs, that we're to pursue knowledge and wisdom and guidance from the Lord. We're to seek for knowledge, wisdom, guidance, just like with the same energy that we would expend seeking after precious gold, precious jewels, silver, things of great physical, monetary value. People will go insane, like the California gold rush or whatever, pursuing gold and silver, something that will increase their wealth, which increases power. And many Christians there's nothing wrong with accumulating or getting the energy to do what you need to do. But in order to gain, in order to take the deeper dive, in order to gain the most precious of the precious jewels, in order to gain the purest of gold in the proper amounts, in order to gain and acquire and possess the things that will produce tangible wealth in physical reality, in order to do that, you have to take the deeper dive. You have to move, you have to go where others are afraid to go. Okay? And so that means you, and I'm talking about you, the person that's listening to me, wherever you are in the world, I'm talking to you directly. You have to also focus in on the neglected dimension of what we could call content. Content. Content is important. Content isn't a secondary thing. Content isn't an add-on. You have to take the deep dive and explore and know content. Because you see, there is content which is one with truth. There's content which is based on truth. And content which is based on truth or is one with truth, that content then, therefore, also has integrity. Content that has integrity, okay, is content that is true. So that which is true, that which has integrity, is the rare content, like precious jewels. If you look at God's moral laws, if you look at God's kingdom laws for mankind, humanity, society, government, and the way we're supposed to behave on planet Earth, if we look at the law of God, or we look at the character of God, or we think about the fact that God is love, and God is just, and God is holy, and God is righteous, when we absorb that content, when we think about that content, when we analyze that content, when we bring that content into us as individuals, into us as families, into us as a nation and a community, into us as inhabitants of planet Earth, when we bring in the proper content, this is so heavy, man, this is incredible. When you bring in the proper content, you are literally bringing in to your core being, and thus it flows out into the world. You're literally bringing into your core being content that is truth, content that is love, content that is pure, content that is healing. That kind of content releases measurable electromagnetic frequency. That integrity of content that is based on love and truth produces and generates an electromagnetic frequency from within individuals that open themselves up to it, either in their hearts or their minds or their souls. And when you allow, because worshiping God, coming into the throne room of God through the blood of Jesus Christ, allows you to be filled with the presence of God, allows you to be infused with truth. That releases, according to God's kingdom laws, that releases a corresponding wavelength of resonant frequency that is incredibly powerful. And you become more than a mere person. The things that you produce and create are more than, let's say, a mathematical equation. They're more than a particular kind of automobile engine. They're more than a set rules that governs any given economic system. They're more than principles of art and design and agility, etc. They release power. They release the power of love, the power of goodness, the power of healing, the power of righting wrongs. True social justice cannot be produced by using content that at its core is birthed from what we could call an evil electromagnetic frequency. Content which comes from evil is based not on the knowledge of God, but it's based on the corrupted knowledge of Lucifer. You're opening yourself up to Luciferian content, which produces Luciferian dark energy. And that's why in the advanced cutting-edge military-industrial complex, in certain areas where they're into super soldiers, human enhancement, etc., they have terms. The scientific military complex has created new vocabulary to reflect the existence of new content. So you hear terms not known to the general public. These terms would be things like black physics, the black sciences. Well, what do they mean by black physics and the black sciences? They mean that advanced science, whether it's neurological science, whether it's nuclear physics or quantum physics, whether it's the CERN device, whether it's 5G, whether it's reverse engineering or whatever, when you move past this mere physical dimension that is built on specific electromagnetic frequencies, when you move into these different dimensions based on different electromagnetic frequencies, depending upon what's in your heart, you have been given by God the choice to use and access the content of, for example, black physics, or the content of scientific mind control, or whatever. You can access that for evil, dark purposes that bring about destruction, that accomplish the will of Satan. What is the will of Satan? Satan went about, Satan, searches the earth. He goes to and fro, seeking whom he may devour. Satan doesn't have permission from God just to devour anyone. Satan can only devour what we would call in the military a soft target. A person who is oblivious to what's going on around them in multiple dimensions, the person who is blinded and cannot see the truth, the person who is preoccupied or focused on dark contents, and that could be bitterness, it could be anger, it could be rage, it could be lust. That person becomes a transmitting tower, or your human biological self built on electromagnetic frequencies. You become a conductor and a transmitter of evil powers that kill and destroy and enslave. And that's because you're locked into, just like you plug in an electronic device into the outlet in the wall, you're plugged into the dark content. And that brings in enormous evil energy and power from another dimension, which kills and destroys. So content is everything. And content, despite what you may have been taught in school, content is all important. Because the content itself, in other words, if somebody has written content, if somebody has visual content, if somebody has a philosophy or philosophical ideas, that reflects content. If somebody has an ideology, a philosophy of ideas, that is based on content. If somebody assembles an army of 1 million men and that army produces all kinds of biological weapons, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, electromagnetic frequency weapons that kill and destroy mass populations that can annihilate hundreds of millions of people. Electromagnetic frequency weapons. The dark energy comes from accessing the content. So what is the prime driver of evil content? The prime driver of evil content always, when you take the deep dive, use Adolf Hitler as an example. Adolf Hitler in the 1930s, in mind-bending time, in the most accelerated manner, Adolf Hitler, because he chose to be plugged in to dark content. Hitler was deeply involved in the occult. He was deeply involved in secret German occult secret societies. He was taking psychedelic drugs. His surrounding generals thought he was demon-possessed. He was downloading supernatural energy based on dark content. And that supernatural energy, those supernatural transmissions, his pursuit of the occult, his pursuit of Satanism, his communication with high-powered occultists like Aleister Crowley, the great Satanist, Vril maidens or Vril maidens, Vril being a German secret occult society. The Vril maidens were beautiful female clairvoyants, and they received telepathically clairvoyant information, electromagnetic frequency information. They received downloads of dark content that consisted of detailed blueprints, detailed scientific and engineering diagrams about how Nazi Germany and Hitler could manufacture the most advanced rockets, how Hitler could manufacture, and the Nazis could produce UFOs, reverse engineering, MK-Ultra mind control, all kinds of advanced scientific and engineering information that Hitler and his scientists put into actual usage by creating mind control MK-Ultra laboratories, by developing the German rocket program, the German UFO program, by sending their scientists and military experts. Hitler sent his top men to penetrate Antarctica and go deep underground under Antarctica, where there was a vast open space and allegedly this gigantic burning sphere deep under the earth or deep under the ice. And that sphere was like a midnight sun. And the picture and image of the midnight sun under Antarctica, that midnight sun was known as the energy force, the spiritual and quantum physics content energy source known as Vril. It could be harnessed for telepathic weapons. It could be harnessed for engineering and science. It was like a multi-leveled energy, consciousness, intelligence force known as Vril. And therefore the Nazis called it the Vril Society and built their entire military and Adolf Hitler's biological data and Adolf Hitler's scientific army, which was creating master eugenics or master selective breeding programs to artificially produce an advanced race of supermen and superwomen by genetic alteration and transforming the DNA of men and women to become super men and women. I mean, this was, how did he access all this futuristic scientific stuff? the way he accessed it is that his scientists were plugged into occult power and physics power. They were connected via black physics, and they were connected via the darkest powers of Satanism to change or reconfigure the physical reality in nations, in individuals, in a nation like Germany, and reconfigure the physical reality of Germany, its military, and reconfigure ultimately planet Earth. Now, I explain, this is a lot of stuff, man. This is a mind-blowing download, but the content is truth that I'm sharing. The content is truth, and it is analyzed in light of biblical truth. They want to be able to enhance, through artificial intelligence and other means, they want to enhance human intelligence. They want to do all kinds of things that will make people smarter, increase their perception, increase their performance, and transform them. Okay? But God, the biblical God, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, the triune God, He's awesome, He's wonderful. And He has a download of the content of biblical truth for you, also known as a biblical worldview, that is so life-changing, that is so energizing, that is so enhancing, that there's nothing in this world like it. See, I believe that we're in the last days. Okay? And because we're in the last days, the Bible, like the book of Daniel, the prophet Daniel, the Bible teaches us that in the last days, knowledge is going to increase. And it's not just spiritual knowledge, and it's not just knowledge of Bible prophecy. Knowledge in a wide spectrum of studies is going to accelerate. So that means science, technology, medicine, a huge acceleration of man's understanding of the world, etc. But there is something that exists that you can access that is so far more powerful, that contains 100% unadulterated truth, the power of truth, that it will change your life, it will rock your world, and consequently, it will change the life of the people around you, and it will rock the world of the people around you. But I want to get into that on the next prophetic emergency alert. I'm Paul McGuire. Visit paulmcguire.us. Take advantage of the book bundles. Save money with these book bundles, and get these books in a book bundle package at paulmcguire.us. I promise you, based on writing over 34 books, many of them bestsellers for the last 34 years, and hearing from people all over the world who have read my books, there are countless numbers of people who have been miraculously saved reading my books. delivered of all kinds of things, people who were raised in the Christian home and backslid, and yet after reading one of my books, they were radically changed. They would have a supernatural encounter with Jesus Christ, plus a download of information on technology, science, culture, how to experience deliverance from woundedness, and understanding the secret behind money, because money is a magical system. Okay, money began in ancient Babylon. It's a system based on an illusion, but you need to get knowledge to get power. That's the shortest way. In my book, The Day the Dollar Died, I explain the secret of the money system. And when you understand it, you'll be set free, because you will not be trapped in a maze of illusions which contain lies about what the money system is. Anyway, this is Paul McGuire. Visit paulmcguire.us. You can help us by spreading these messages far and wide on your friends' social media, groups that you're involved in. Look, I need your help in spreading this message. The things are intense in the U.S. right now. We're at the crossroads, make no mistake about it. And God has given us the power. That means God has given you the power, me the power, and even more power when we join together in truth and unify in both love and truth, coming from a biblical worldview. God has given us the supernatural power to change our future. And this doesn't interfere with Bible prophecy, because Bible prophecy is going to play out no matter what any man or group of men and women do. Okay? So I start from that premise. God is the sovereign king. Nobody can change God's future. It's impossible. God knows the end from the beginning. But we are approaching the time period, we're in the time period prior to before the second coming. And so in that time period, Jesus Christ said, save souls, make disciples of all nations, occupy until I come, and other things. Now, he wouldn't have said that if he did not give us the power to change the future. When you lead somebody to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, their life changes, but they also then become instruments of God to change the world, to change society. So we're not frozen in some evil system, helpless. Okay? We're not. When you read the content, when you understand, when you do the deep dive regarding biblical truth, and you absorb the content, and that's really getting to know more about Jesus Christ, it will revolutionize your world and the world around you. God bless you. This is Paul McGuire. Stay tuned and check out our next Prophetic Emergency Alert and our next Paul McGuire Report program. And write the URL addresses down, and make sure you take it upon yourself to spread these messages far and wide, because we're at war with an evil machine that is censoring, that is taking... Can you imagine being the head of a multi-billion-dollar social media, internet company, communications company, television network, or whatever? Can you imagine being the head or one of the top dogs, if you will, of some of these media companies? And what you're really all about is you're waging war against the truth? That means you're waging war against the true content. You're waging war against God, who is love. How can you how deep is the spiritual deception in your life that you have absorbed the dark content into your soul, and you become like a wrecking ball against truth? You know, you don't have to be a Christian to understand that what you put out comes back in on you. People in all religions understand that. You know, what goes out, creates what goes in. Karma, the law of sowing and reaping. There are people in every kind of religion, mysticism or humanism, and most of them know there's some kind of principle in the universe that what you put out, you get back in. It's called the law of sowing and reaping. So who's even remotely insane would become an agent for the kingdom of darkness and spend their lives, their time, their money, their energy, and use their media machines to destroy truth and love content? Who would do that? Only somebody who's been captured and deceived by the big darkness. But that's not irreversible. You can change it, but it requires that a radical presentation of the truth be presented in an effective, intelligent manner. I'm Paul McGuire. Visit paulmcguire.us. That's paulmcguire.us. Spread this message far and wide.